It's going to be Alabama or Kentucky, and we've kind of been looking at both. We're not as familiar with Kentucky, although I've talked to Gary Henderson a bunch. We're pretty close, and Kentucky's a really interesting club. I mean, you look at what they did against a Florida club who's really good. You look at what they did against a very good South Carolina club, and it's just kind of been a little bit up and down for them. But they can certainly beat anybody in our league. They've shown that, and they have a really interesting closer, and they have some pretty good starting pitching. The really issue in this tournament is because everybody's short a day, and in some cases, if you're playing today, you're short 2 days on turning your starting guys around from last Thursday. So we're going to stay with Dakota for sure on Thursday and give them the full week. I'm very hopeful that if we can play well and win a game, that we got to get Sexton out there, because if he doesn't pitch and he goes 2 weeks without pitching, or 13 days or whatever it is, that's going to be difficult for him, because he's a guy who needs to touch a baseball and work a little bit. So, we'll probably Zach's going to get the ball tomorrow, Zach Houston, and we'll probably have some bullpen pieces that are going to help. I'd love not to use Humphreys, but if we need an out or two or three at the end, he'll be available to us. I really don't want to use a Daniel Brown either, but if we have to, we will, because it's that important a game for us. So all these games are important because, even though we won the league, there's still a lot at stake for us for sure.
You talk about that, a lot of people say just lose two and go home because you really have nothing to gain, but it seems like your team just wants to play baseball. I don't care what's at stake, where it's at. Is that what you kind of sense from
Yeah,
that?
I think so. There's two extremes. If you lose two, you have that taste in your mouth of not playing well. If the opposite extreme of that is you win five or whatever, and your team can be a little tired and exhausted, and you have to kind of refresh, and it's hard. It's hard to work when your kids are really tired, and a lot of that 5 games depends really upon what time of day you're playing in Hoover, because we all know, Hoover at midday can be a pretty warm, on the field it can be 100 degrees, so if you're playing at night, it's a whole different thing. But we'll take all those things into account. Our kids, they want to win. I don't know how many in a row we won, but they want to win, and they want to keep winning. Just like everybody else is in this tournament. So hopefully we'll get a great effort out of Zach Houston, and our bullpen pieces will come through, and we'll score in in a ballpark that's tough to score in. It's a big ballpark. Yeah, it's going to be a fun week for us, I hope.
You got some guys in the bullpen that hadn't thrown a whole lot here lately. Is this a week where you can try to get some of those guys out there if it works out that way?
I think so, especially in game one. I think it matches up in game one better than in two, because you want Dakota to throw us 100 pitches, and hopefully you get him 6, 7, 8 innings into a ball game. But you're not going to give him 120. Even if he's throwing a shutout like he was on Thursday night, you're not going to run that risk, and it'll be even though he doesn't want that ball pried out of his hands, we'll do it, because we know that there's a lot at stake to make sure that he's healthy and ready to go in 2 weeks.
It's kind
of a week, I'm sorry.
Kind of a little bit the same thing Ben was talking about, but is there anything at all that you do different, knowing that, I guess you don't know anything for sure, but having a good idea that maybe a national seed and all that's locked up and things, do you do anything different at all with this tournament?
Well, some crazy things can happen in that room, I don't look at RPIs a lot, but I know our RPI isn't as good as some others. There's a lot of things that can go on in that room. I'm totally aware of the fact that they can go, well, they won the league, the SEC, but, they went 2 and out. Some things can happen in that room, and here's what else can happen around the country. A team in the ACC can reel off 5 in a row, and now all of a sudden maybe they won 14 or 15 in the regular season. Now they can say, well, they won 20 ACC games, in the league that's ranked number 1 in the country according to RPI. So the easy thing to do is, hey, let's take care of our own business. Let's do everything we can to win our games and let the chips fall. You start worrying about all these other factors that can drive you nuts, but there are factors out there, and we can't assume anything at this point.
What were 24 hours after the championship like for you? All the text calls.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, it's great. Teammates from '89. The Mississippi State baseball program is a family, and so many people have reached out. It's been great. It's a little overwhelming because I'm somebody that feel compelled to get back in touch with people as quickly as I possibly can, and that's a little overwhelming, especially in a day where we have a lot going on. But it's great. It really, that's the point in which you start reflecting a little bit, because we win the league and all that's great. I'm so excited for our fans and our players and everything else. But there's no reflective time. When guys that you played with start saying, "Hey, remember this or remember that," that becomes a little bit more reflective. But it's great. That's what makes us a family. That's why at our alumni weekends we have hundreds of players come back, because they love this baseball program.
Fourth time you've been named Coach of the Year. What does that mean to you?
It means you got good players and you got a good staff, and I'm not being glib there. You have to have great players and you have to have great coaches, and I've just been really fortunate. I've had 3 assistant coaches who have been National Assistant Coach of the Year, and I'm not so sure that Nick Mingione is good or better than all those guys. He's going to be the next one. He'll be the 4th one to be a National Coach of the Year at some point. So, yeah, I'm just really proud of those guys. If everybody knew the sacrifices that all of these kids, their parents, our staff, their families make, and I'm not just talking about at Mississippi State, I'm talking about it at all levels of Division I baseball. It's crazy, because of the nature of what we do is so different than other sports. Here we are, what are we doing right now in the recruiting process? We're trying to hold together a class that we sign in November. And there's 100 different factors with each one of those kids that we sign in November. Are they going to sign a professional contract? How are they playing right now? What clubs are interested in them? Are they injured? Do they have any academic needs? All of these things. Who's advising them? All of those are the things that go along with, oh yeah, there's an SEC tournament. We got to get our kids ready to play in the best tournament in America, in my opinion. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that these coaches have invested in these players.
In your mind, how big have Jack Kruger and Nathaniel Lowe been to the success of this team this year?
Both those guys have been tremendous, but the guy I kind of feel for a little bit is Collins. Collins has been maybe our most clutch guy in the middle of our order. He has been phenomenal, and all those other guys around him were all SEC players. And I think Collins had a great year, and he's going to continue to have a great year. And he battled through some injury stuff, and he's playing a position that he's been playing for 9 months. I mean, he is a hero to our club. I mean, he is somebody who has just battled his tail off. He's had some arm issues, he had a hamate issue, and he just keeps battling and getting big hits for us. I mean, we might not win the ball game on Saturday if he doesn't have the clutch double right there to drive and run. I mean, he's been phenomenal. I'm not taking anything away from our other players, but they got their accolades. Collins not necessarily, Gridley not necessarily a guy. I think he's played as good a shortstop as anybody in our league. So we have other components. I think John Holland, played a great second base for us, and stepped in when we really needed him to, when Stovey went down, and John Holland's gotten some big hits. So yeah, we've had a nice balance in our lineup, and some of those guys have gotten recognized a little bit more than others, and really they all need to be recognized.
How close is Stovall to being back out there?
I think he's really close. He was running around there like crazy. The thing about him is he goes out there and really busting, and he's trying to show our staff, hey, I can play, I can do this, and he's diving all over the place. And then the question is, how does he feel the next day, coming off that? So yesterday he was all over the place, and we got to see how he's doing today, how he rebounded from that.
What about Luke Alexander?
Yeah, Luke says that his hand is feeling good. Again, he has the same injury that Collins had, that hamate deal, and he's going to have surgery as soon as our season's over. But he's gotten better and better and better. I'm a lot more confident right now than I was 2-3 weeks ago in putting him in a ball game and helping us, because I think he's just gotten used to that injury, and it feels better. But I think Luke Alexander, he could be our best defensive infielder on our ball club. And he's going to be a great player in our program.
There's been a lot of talk about SEC tournament site and things. What's your thoughts on it? Either being in Hoover, or is it time to maybe change venues? Or I guess what just your thoughts on all that?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. Number one, Hoover has done such a great job. I was lucky enough. I think I played in the very first. They called it the SEC World Series, believe it or not. that first year in 1990. And three of those teams that played in that, three of the six teams, I believe, that played in that tournament ended up in Omaha. But, yeah, I think the people in Hoover have just gone so far above and beyond expectation, and they've improved it every single year, and they've worked so incredibly hard. That part is the part where you go, wow, what more can these folks do to make all of us feel welcome? But at the same time, I know that the SEC has to make very difficult decisions, and I know that they kind of have to share. And I know that other sports have moved their SEC site for their tournament around the league a little bit, and we haven't necessarily done that for baseball. So I think the SEC has a tough decision, because I think there might be some sites that are very worthy, and some of them have already been mentioned. But, that I would really feel for the folks in Hoover, because they've done an amazing job.
Me and Gion said yesterday that in the fall, Mangum was really pressing, trying to do too much, worrying about hitting the ball over the fence. What did you tell him to just be himself?
Yeah, Jake, I just feel like he like a lot of freshmen, he was concerned about a lot of things instead of just simplifying. And the thing I give him tremendous credit for is he is, in our season, he's been able to simplify his world. I see it. I'm looking for this in a certain position. I'm going to get a great jump out of the box. I'm going to run a great time to first. Defensively, I'm going to be ready when the game finds me. I'm going to know what pitch is being thrown. I'm going to run to that spot. He's just simplified things. I think the biggest tendency of a freshman, and I was probably guilty of this 100 years ago, is you just are consumed with things that you can't control. And if a freshman can get over that, they have a chance to contribute to a baseball team, and I think that's what he's been able to do.
I think it's 2 stolen bases Saturday. Is that an area where he can kind of grow maybe next season going forward?
Yeah, I think he can be a base stealer. I think he can. I'm not convinced he's not going to end up pitching for us at some point in time. I mean, I've seen him go 92 with a decent breaking ball. That's not out of the realm of possibility for us as well.
Thanks, John.